Join PCTechForum.net is a new site. It's a way we'll be discussing everything related to tech news. They'll be discussing the latest processors, graphic cards, laptops, hard drives, computer cases. They also have a section for pre-built PCs and custom-built PCs, and also a PC straight from the manufacturer. They also be discussing the operating systems and how to troubleshoot them. And said, last but not least, they'll also be discussing the latest games and business. The site is brand new, so people will join for the first time on there. So come and sign up today at PCTechForum.net. So there was a sheriff named Jody Greene was caught on tape being an anti-black racist. Let's go ahead and roll that.
I had to fire every mother out, and guess what? I'm tired of this. They ain't happening no more. No god more.
That's the voice of Columbus County Sheriff Jody Greene. He won his seat by 34 votes in an election that was so highly contested he'd been temporarily removed from office while officials settled the election disputes. That was the setting the night Greene called acting Sheriff Jason Soules, saying their office had a snitch.
Immediately after being appointed the interim sheriff, started to get a lot of phone calls from Jody late at night. And this one particular phone call that we received, he made the comment that he hated Democrats. And then he said, I take that back, I hate a black Democrat. And I knew right at the end, I was like, wow, this is coming from the sheriff. And I had to start recording those conversations.
Former Sheriff Lewis Hatcher was the first African American ever to serve as sheriff in Columbus County. Greene says on the call he's specifically concerned that people in his office are leaking information to Hatcher and Melvin Campbell, another African American officer Greene fired shortly after taking office.
It's stopping. Tomorrow's gonna be a new day. I'm still the mother sheriff, and when I'll go there and find my goddamn black bastards. That's like I'm scared. That's stupid.
It gets worse. After the sheriff explains that he's getting phone records from Verizon to trace anyone in his office who's called Campbell or Hatcher, he lets Soules know the plan.
We'll get this thing get off. And Melvin Campbell's the biggest snake as Lewis Hatcher ever dared to be. Every black that I know, you need to find him to start with. He's a snake.
Former Sergeant Melvin Campbell said he was so surprised when he heard this recording of the sheriff talking like this about him, he had to listen to it twice. Before taking the job at the sheriff's office, Campbell, who received the Order of the Longleaf Pine from the governor, spent 30 years as a highway patrol officer under Jody Greene's supervision.
And I worked with him, and it kind of shocked me. You know what I mean? That came out of his mouth. I thought we was friends. But with friends like that, who needs enemies?
In the months that followed, the only two black members of Sheriff Greene's command staff were demoted or fired. Soules says ever since making that recording, he's been working to bring it to the attention of county commissioners, court officials, the Attorney General, and the SBI over concerns that the county's most powerful law enforcement leader had a bias against black people.
I was told to just keep documenting everything that happens so that we would have a paper trail of it, and we did.
But Soules said no matter who he and his supporters turned to, nothing happened. Soules is now running against Greene for sheriff and doesn't want people to think his actions are politically motivated. But he says people need to know the real Jody Greene.
And I didn't want to do this to begin with. You know, I wanted help. I wanted to do it the right way. And I have reached out to everyone that I know to reach out to. I've even tried to get to the governor. You know, I started at the bottom of the commissioners and worked all the way to the top, to the AG's office and the governor's office. But I just can't seem to get any help.
The residents of that area is in grave danger. When you have someone who is an anti-black racist being in a position of sheriff, it's very dangerous because other white supremacists and law enforcement that's underneath him, he will not do anything about it. That is extremely dangerous for black people. When these elected officials get in office and they're found out, black people, you have to make sure that you do a few things. When you get this information, all of you should be registered to vote. Listen, I do believe in being registered to vote. It's 4 things I believe what black people should have in America. One, as I talked about before, you should be registered to vote. Because when you're registered to vote, when you see something like this, because the sheriff is an elected official. A judge is an elected official. District attorney, elected official. Mayor, people like that. Once you get this information, say, okay, we know who he is, then I'm going to show up and vote him out, because it is your own fault if you would let a guy like that stay in office. How would you hear this information and he last? No. Every black person in that county needs to be out voting. Matter of fact, I'll say go to early voting. That's what I do when I vote. I go to early voting. I go there and I take care of it. It's easy. I get in, I get out. Nobody in my way. I mean, I think it's silly to wait till election day when there's a big crowd. But you got to be, exercise your right to vote. In situations like this, your local elections is very important. Now, you could vote for somebody or you could not vote for somebody. But this situation, I would go out and vote for the guy that exposed him. I would go vote for him, because I'm saying, you know what? That's something he didn't have to do. He could have kept that quiet. He could have kept it quiet. And he was reporting it to everybody and nobody was doing nothing about it, which is very typical because they want to cover up racism, white supremacy. We know that. This guy is extremely dangerous for all the black residents. So black folks, make sure you vote in this election. The second thing I always tell black people you need to have a U.S. passport. The reason why you need to have a U.S. passport is because if something was to go down, you just want to go on vacation, whatever, you can leave the country with no problem. A passport is not that expensive. You need to have a driver's license. All black folks should have a driver's license. Doesn't make sense. Your driver's license is one of your forms of ID. The other thing that black folks need to have is an ability to protect yourself in your home. We know what that is. I don't have to explain it. Because the police is not going to show up and protect you when someone's trying to break into your home in the middle of the night. You are on your own. So you need an ability to protect yourself and your family. You need to have that. That's just 4 things minimum that black folk need to have. But when it comes to this guy here, yeah, he got to go. He got to go. He's sitting up here saying black bastards and I'm sick of it. And he can't stand a black Democrat. Because he didn't have a problem with Democrats, just black Democrats. Why? Well, what's the problem with black Democrats? White Democrats in the same party? What's the issue? And if this was an isolated incident, I would leave it like that. But this isn't an isolated incident. This isn't. This is all over the country. This is why I said a long time ago, a lot of these people don't have a moral compass to be in charge of anything. Because with an anti-black bias that they have, which I would say is in the majority, because even other white folks have admitted the majority has an anti-black bias, they shouldn't be in charge of anything. Only people who don't have that. And listen, they could, make it where they can put everybody on a lie detector test and ask them about certain biases. And hey, if they don't pass the test, then they don't get the job. They could do that. But they know good and well they wouldn't be in charge no more if they did that, because the majority of them have failed. The culture teaches, in their culture, it teaches them to hate black folk. I'm not saying all do, but a good size amount do. And I'm not saying they ain't any groups or nothing like that. No, it's just in the culture itself. But y'all let me know what y'all think about, this sheriff here. Black folks, it's on you. Get yourself out there and vote. Get this guy out. If this guy stay in office, it's going to be your own fault.
On average, the black dollar circulates for about 6 hours in the black community. We need to do better as a community, support black-owned businesses, but that's sometimes easier said than done. Before we can support black-owned businesses, we need a readily available economic search engine to be able to find those black businesses to support in our communities. The Essential Black Business app is the answer to that question. The EBA is always on the community side, meeting the community's needs with easy access.